Welcome to CMO Confidential, the podcast that takes you inside the drama, decisions, and choices that go with being the head of marketing. Hosted by five-time CMO Mike Linton.
Welcome, marketers, advertisers, and those who love them to Chief Marketing Officer Confidential. CMO Confidential is a program that takes you inside the drama, the decisions, and the politics that go with being the head of marketing at any company in what is one of the most scrutinized jobs in the executive suite. I'm Mike Linton, the former Chief Marketing Officer of Best Buy, eBay, Farmers Insurance, and Ancestry.com, here today with my guest, Tom Goodwin. Today's topic, a contrarian take on everything, everywhere, all at once. Now, Tom has been studying innovation and change his whole career. He started in the agency business and held positions as the head of innovation at Zenith, the head of futures and insight at Publicis, and the SVP of strategy and innovation at Havas. He's a prominent public speaker, wrote a book called Digital Darwinism, and publishes a missive called Nowism. Full disclosure, I have known Tom since my time at Farmers, where he impressed me with his practical take on innovation and his willingness to be a full-on contrarian. This is his second time on the show. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. I never normally get invited back onto things, so it's quite a shock. I'll try not to repeat the same things as if.
Yeah, so we have bad taste and judgment, so welcome back. We might have you on even longer.
I think so.
Hey, now I've been reading your post and thought we should talk about the fact that you have a different take on just about everything that is all the rage now. Let's start with AI, artificial intelligence. You said it is driven by what I call FOMO, fear of missing out, and that the hype on AI is maybe a little overblown. Give us an overview of what you're thinking and your meaning on that.
Yes. Well, to start with, I want to take issue with the idea that I'm a contrarian, which in itself is a contrarian viewpoint. So I may as well just shut up because I've already proven myself. I do just think there's a lot of people that say a lot of nonsense. And it's not my goal to read the entire internet and figure out what I can have a different opinion on. It's just that I have my own views that are often rooted in an understanding of how the real world actually works. And therefore I quite often see things and I think this is nonsense, this just isn't true. And when I talk about things in that kind of manner, they tend to spread further, these sort of algorithms spread things that are exciting. So there are quite a lot of things I agree with lots of other people on. It's just, we won't be talking about those things today. So generative AI and horoscopes, I quite like this. Like it's one of those things I think I'd quite like to be known for. Everyone wants to think that the world makes sense. Everyone wants to think that there's this ultimate higher power that's sort of intelligent. Everyone wants to sort of see the evidence they need to see to reaffirm a viewpoint they've already had. And I think if you go to AI expecting it to be miraculous and magical and brilliant and insightful and almost human, you can get an answer and you read that into it. You can kind of read, what are the top themes of 2024? Oh my God, this is amazing. This is genius. This thing knows more than I could ever know. If you come to it expecting it to be terrible and sort of trite and full of sort of lowest common denominator sort of crap, then you'll read it and you'll get that from it as well. So I really think with this material, when we're reading it, we're really reading what our own opinions already were on this matter. I tend to think the generative AI for most things is actually rather pointless. If you're someone that works for the Daily Show making graphics, to bring to life Barack Obama getting smashed over the head with a cream pie, you could do a job with generative AI, but there are not that many people that do that for a living. If it's your job to write really boring copy that's entirely sort of derivative.
Great job description.
Yeah. I mean, I'd apply. If your job is to do something that's offering no real unique value, then this is a sort of a helpful way to work less hard. But I'd like to think that most jobs are about adding something that needs to exist.
So let's dig in a little bit. So if you think the hype is overblown, what is generative AI useful for? How should people be thinking about it? And then is the long-term, so two-part question, and is the long-term view of this right or wrong, in your opinion? So
so
now
generative AI,
long term.
I mean, the hard thing about the internet is everything has to be made more simple so that people can understand it. So you end up saying things like Gen AI is going to change everything, or Gen AI is a complete waste of time. And obviously, all of reality lives in the nuance. Generative AI could be spectacular when it comes to writing code. Generative AI is amazing at doing things that don't matter that much well. I had to, just before we came on air, I had to apply to rent out an apartment, and I had to write a personal statement about why I'd be a wonderful renter. This is not going to be sort of Pulitzer Prize winning journalism. No one's going to buy a copy of this. It just has to be fodder that passes through a sort of bureaucratic step. No human being is probably ever going to read it. They just want to know that it was done. And I think that as a sort of framework for generative AI is quite useful. What is not particularly important, what doesn't need to provide anything new or original, what is the sort of the filler tracks to the album almost. And I may have said this on the show last time, but generative AI is a little bit like having about 1 million like really cocky, arrogant 16-year-old interns that are extremely
I would have
they're sort of extremely diligent. They're really well behaved. They're probably trying to get a really good reference. They're not going to try and freak you out by doing something weird. And in a weird way, like I have this really compelling view that everything that really adds value to the world is the stuff that's extraordinary. It's the stuff that's remarkable, that's new, that's naive, that's sort of uncommon, that's risky, that sort of has like an element of sort of humanity and passion and quirkiness. That's how the world really moves forward.
So let me pile on this a little bit. Yeah. We had a venture capitalist on talking about what he sees the investments are in AI, and they're all about what you just said, which is, yes, I'm going to take something that is pretty standardized, like just case law or basic law or some basic marketing stuff or basic. This is going to be in the efficiency front, but then that's going to free up time for people, if they use it right, to do what you just said, which is add value at on either customer experience level or the innovation front.
Yeah, broadly speaking, that's absolutely correct. I mean, the more I've thought about it, I think that's quite a common view in the industry. This can be the thing that frees up the time for people to be most good at what they are. I'm still kind of wondering how much value it actually adds. I mean, I'm doing a lot of consulting work at the moment. I'm extremely keen to use these tools. I've probably used them 1,000 times now. And the only real value I've got from it is when I need to make sure that I'm not being really stupid. It doesn't really make me more intelligent. It just gives me more confidence that I'm not being stupid.
Give us an example. Give us an example if you
can. Say you're working in a brand new field. I don't know. I had to do a presentation the other day, a large event all about the future of cities. I've spent quite a lot of my life thinking about cities. I go on, quite a regular sort of digest to read about it. And I wrote down what I thought would be 15 really interesting things to say about the future of cities. I then went to generative AI and asked it, things that it found interesting. And it basically gave me about 7 things, most of which were way more bland and similar to my points. It didn't give me the sort of 6 ones that I'd come up with, which were different. It didn't give me 6 ones that were extraordinary and I hadn't thought about. And what it did is it provided me with confidence that by talking about what I'm talking about, I'm not going to be wrong. For me, it's the sort of background music. Generative AI is elevator music. No one gets rich making elevator music, but it does allow music to sort of permeate into places that people haven't thought about before. Generative AI sort of allows us to have a more substantial platform for reassurance. And people are always saying, well, that's now, it's going to get better. People are always saying the more data that goes into it, the more sophisticated it'll get. I don't believe that's true, because I think it's like adding more black and white paint into a sort of a painting container and then expecting to get different colors from it. I think the more bland stuff we ingest into something, and the more that this stuff is based around probability of likely existing combinations, I think it kind of improves the resolution of a process which is determined to make something that's average. This for me is the kind of the Forbes articles. Like every year you can sort of go to CES and you can sort of see what's going on, and there'll be a Forbes article and it'll talk about connected cars, autonomous vehicles, the smart home, refrigerators, refrigerators with cameras in it. And there's no value to that whatsoever. Talking about the same things that other people are talking about actually offers you no value whatsoever. It's the one or two little crazy moments that only a human can find because they look beyond the data set. That's where the value comes.
Got it. Let's flip this over to value again, which is one of the headlines you just wrote is Uber finally makes a profit. World wonders if pigs can fly. Now, this to me was really a poke at Silicon Valley, and a lot of the tech and the tech, I'm just going to say innovation, revolutionizing the world in general. At least that's how I took it. Tell me what you meant and if I was wrong there.
Yeah, so I'm doing nothing to sort of dispel the idea that I'm a sort of angry, dollar store contrarian. But I mean, the Innovator's Dilemma, which is a wonderful sort of piece of thinking by Clayton Christensen, was based on the idea that, technology allows us to really change the unit economics of the world. The new technology comes along and allows companies to operate in ways which are radically more efficient and effective. And you can look at something like streamed videos, and you can think, wow, this is a lot better than someone driving to a store, picking up a DVD and driving home. You get sort of zero marginal cost, everything becomes software, life is good. Almost everything that people get very excited about today is not a sort of disruption to the unit economics. I mean, when you buy a sort of mattress online, the internet hasn't done something wonderful that allows the mattress to sort of establish itself in your home without you leaving the home. It just means that rather than you sort of can around this bulky piece of foam, someone else did it. One of my most, I guess it's contrarian again, one of my most popular sort of, fun things to do is to think, imagine if the world had happened the other way around. Imagine if we'd never known electric vehicles. Imagine if we'd never known petrol-driven vehicles and we'd only ever known battery-driven vehicles. How would we feel if someone invented the mechanical petrol gasoline-driven car? There would be some things about that would feel quite remarkable. Right. If all we'd ever known was e-commerce and someone said, hey, I'm going to rent out a warehouse near you, I'm going to make it really nice. You can just pick up anything you want and take it home. It would, in some ways, sort of seem like a revelation. We're going to have people that are employed there to sort of help you, and they smile at you and they sort of greet you and they ask you how your day is going. It all seems very pleasant. And sometimes I look at Uber, and I'm a big fan of Uber, and I kind of think, using all this technology should have changed the fundamental economics. Like the whole idea of it is that because you're outsourcing financial risk to the driver, because you're not really fitting around regulations that are there to protect us, because you're not responsible for buying a medallion or a license, this must be extraordinarily cheap, or it must be the same price and they're making boatloads of money. And it's just quite interesting to me that they've never really figured out a way to make money. The assumption was always that autonomous vehicles would come along, and they'd strip out the cost of actually a human being driving it. And it seems that only under that paradigm does this make sense.
Yeah, because right now or my take, I'm not 100% certain on this. It's not even that much cheaper than things used to be, and it's still not. I mean, it did make money finally, but
it depends on the city. Certainly in London, it's a much cheaper way to get around, but most of North American cities, it's more expensive. I mean, it is a better service. I mean, maybe I'm seeming like a caricature here, but Uber is fantastic, and the ability for you to be in a kind of a Sheraton in the middle of a suburb in America and still get to a meeting in the center of the city, because you can press a few buttons. Like it's extraordinary. It's just it's weird to me that these things don't make money. if anyone's ever ordered an Uber Eats, these days you spend about $85 to get 2 pita bread, some hummus and some baba ganoush. And you think, where did all this money go? Like it didn't go on aubergines. They've hardly used any. Has this all just gone on sort of AdWords and sponsored YouTube posts or something?
I love the word. I love the use of the word aubergines. So
oh yeah, eggplant.
There we go, everyone. Eggplant. So
cilantro.
So we've got like Instacart pricing. It's IPO. We've got a lot of stuff coming out. Is there anybody really bucking the trend here on this tech front in your mind? Because really what you just kind of described was what I'll call the dollars to dimes thing, which is
yes.
We used to make $1, now we put the internet on, and now we do the same thing, and now we make a dime instead of $1. Who's bucking the trend there?
I think the problem has been that everyone that understood technology has sort of triumphed over people who actually knew what they were doing. There are people who worked for Procter & Gamble for decades who knew precisely how to make a boatload of cash, selling shampoo or dog food. And then somehow some people came along before and they said, we're tech people, everything's a technology company, software's eating the world, and they sort of invented cereals that get delivered to people's homes, in sort of big boxes for $45 a month. And for some reason, the sort of focus sort of shifted to technology companies with the assumption that technology people could solve everything and do things in a much better way. Generally speaking, I think we're in the process of a sort of realignment around reality and the sort of physics of economics almost, and the realization that if you pay someone, $15 an hour to sort of drive in a Toyota Corolla to pick up something for you, that actually costs quite a lot of money, and it's extremely hard to make money from these industries. I think there are a tranche of companies that would be amazing if they tried to be medium-sized. Again, there's something weird about the tech industry where everyone needs to IPO, everyone needs to become a sort of a billionaire, and therefore there's no point in making an exercise bike that's loved by 500,000 people. You have to sort of create a tech platform that's going to change the world. So many of these companies are fantastic and brilliant and life-changing as medium-sized companies, but not big ones. Many of them will make sense in the future as long as they can sort of hold on to that. I look at companies like Carvana. I look at companies like Casper, the sort of direct-to-consumer mattress company. Uber, like if the technology changes so that drivers can be taken out of the loop, then Uber makes sense for a sort of long-term play. When it comes to companies that are sort of undervalued now and I think are amazing, there are lots that I think do a wonderful job as a consumer, but they're almost zero that I would actually invest in. Roku, I think, is a very interesting business because how it could completely change the way that TV advertising is delivered. I think there are a number of car companies that if they get their costs under, like a car company like Polestar, I think could be quite interesting. But the more I spend in this industry, the more I have respect for the McDonald's of the world, the P&Gs of the world, the Nescafes, the Nestle's of the world. Something like Nespresso is probably one of the best business ideas that anyone in the last 100 years has come up with, but it doesn't tend to get the sort of credit that it deserves.
Got it. Hey, moving into the marketing realm, and we're going to talk about what marketers should do in a little bit, but you said the invention of the internet made ads really bad. Tell me what you're thinking there and what happened.
I mean, to start with, it's definitely true. I mean, ads are amazing. Like ads can be so beautiful. You go to sort of, London and you look on the underground, the tube, and you think, this is brilliant. The people working behind this are extraordinarily good at what they do. You read magazines and you see stuff and you think, this is beautiful. Famously, if you offer people magazines without the ads, they'd rather have them with the ads. So we used to do this stuff in a way that was brilliant. And nobody could look at a single ad now online and think, I bet the people behind that are proud. If you asked anyone in the planet to name the favorite ad that they've seen that was served digitally, I mean, you'd have to sort of define what digitally means, but you could sort of say on, sort of in their social media feeds. You would find a few people that said that they had ads that were quite well placed, but you wouldn't find people that thought that the ads were great themselves. And I mean, actually, I'd like to get your opinion on this, Mike. But for me, I think that it changed the whole game of advertising. It meant that advertising got very cheap. The more time that we spent online, the more inventory was created. The more we sort of clicked on things, the more inventory was created. And therefore, the cost of digital media was always very cheap. And because it was always a kind of add-on to an existing media plan that was normally based on sort of sticking numbers in an Excel spreadsheet to make sure they added up to a lot, I don't think anyone ever really took it very seriously. And then
I got to jump in because I think one of the things that's going on is a lot of the ads, particularly in social or just digitally delivered, they're viewed by what they sell. They're not necessarily viewed by who they convince or who they bring in that's new. So what I would say that has gone on here that is, I think, really interesting is the ad has really become part of the sales funnel, not part of the actual moving consumers into new ground funnel.
Yes.
And that has created what I'm going to call a very workmanlike look.
Yes.
Everything in that last mile, and that last mile is almost always digital. And that has taken a lot of the creativity out of it because it can't be measured.
Yes. Yes.
And also then you're working on media to deliver these ads directly to someone that wants to buy or is thinking about buying. So the ads have conformed, in my mind, to their environment, but the rest of the environment is still out there, and these ads don't work in that part.
No, and I think there's a lot going on. I think there's a lot of false attribution where the assumption is that the last thing that you got served was the thing that persuaded you to act, when actually it may be the best way you acted. Right. I think broadly speaking, the whole world sort of split into two. Basically it sort of split into sort of brand advertising, which was sort of telling stories, and it didn't really have to sort of perform, which is a terrible way to think about it. And then there was performance marketing, which was responsible for kind of like getting all the clicks and making everything happen. For some reason, which I don't really understand, but the assumption always was that digital channels can't build brands. The assumption was that traditional media can't be used to performance. So I think we very lazily gone about it. You almost have these two completely different worlds. I could talk about this for a long time, by the way, so maybe we should.
We got to move on, but I think this is a whole other show, which is also the accounting of these.
Yes,
you are accounting for these over 1 year, and you don't treat any of the line item as an investment, and almost by definition, move the marketing to sales. So I want to write the marketer in the story from your perspective. So you're sitting here, and you're undoubtedly, a lot of marketers, well, I know this, are talking. You're getting a lot of pressure to do AI, to do more with less, to find efficiencies, to build the business at a time when everything's been revalued. And also everyone's still on it for the tech button. Write the marketer into the story. What should they be doing now?
I think in an ideal world, and this is where you'll smile at me because you know what it's actually like, Mike, you would gain the trust of the board and the CEO, and you would be able to persuade them that you are doing the right thing, even though you're doing things very differently to other people. So you would hold strong. When the world wants you to do a Coca-Cola that's got a new flavor that's created by AI to get press, you need to go through the process of listening to your customers and figuring out what they really want. When the world is trying to use AI to do customer service very, very cheaply and very, very badly, you need to create the business case to do it with humans in a way that creates real, creates real connections and along the lines that customer service can be a marketing touch point. It's not that you need to do everything differently. It's just that you need to remember that almost everything that we knew about marketing in the 1940s is still as true as ever.
I think this is a super point, which is the marketing fundamentals are still the same. Everything around it has changed, but the fundamentals are still the same.
Yes.
But and you have actually written about this, I think, where everyone wants to be tech-like and disruptive.
Yes.
In fact, I think you called it smug capital in tech and disruptive. But the real fact is, if the tech is a great delivery channel, or you are truly disruptive, that's great. But in the bottom fundamental of this is the consumer still has to understand it and like it. Am I getting that right? And if I am, expound on it. If I'm not, take a contrarian.
No, I mean, it would be amazing to get 20 incredible marketers in a room and say, what now fundamentally is different about the principles of marketing today than it was in 1940 or 50? Like what rules are no longer true, and what new rules should we write? And I'm really sure that nothing would change at all. I think we would figure out that if you look through the tactics or the methods that you could use along those principles, we'd find out that there was new stuff. But we'd also probably realize that even the new stuff hasn't fundamentally changed the very nature of the business. Like you could end up with a sort of an A4 sheet of paper where you write down the differences that really matter. And I would love, this sounds like a metaphor, but I actually literally mean this as a process. I would love people to do their jobs along the principles that have always worked, and then occasionally to look at the A4 piece of paper with the things that are different, but to kind of root it in the fundamentals of the past, and to sort of dial it up with the possibilities of the new. And we would realize the importance of consistency, the importance of empathy, the importance of a powerful idea, the importance of imagery that is premium. We'd end up realizing that most of what we do is very similar to the past.
Well, we are going to cut out this after this show runs, and we're going to post it and let marketers talk.
I would love to know. I would love to know.
Also, anybody listening to the show right now, feel free to add in the comments, is Tom Goodwin right or not? Yeah. Let's hear it.
Actually, can I point out one difference? There is one really, really important difference, which actually no one ever talks about. And that is that the entire field is now democratized. So the entire world of marketing and advertising used to be dominated by very big companies with very big budgets who'd work with agencies. And the single most important change is something that we never talk about. And that's that actually, 80% of the clients that Facebook or Google have are small companies.
Yes, that's true.
And those people are self-serving, and those people don't have agencies to work with them, and those people struggle to get the resource. So if there is going to be one big thing that generative AI does, it's not to affect our jobs, big smug people working for big companies. It's to, impact the car dealership with 2 car dealers. It's to impact the bed and breakfast place where, Doreen's trying to figure out how to use Google and is using clip art. Actually, that's where the change comes. And it means that the quality of advertising from small companies becomes much more significant.
That is super interesting. So listeners, let's hear from you on this, because I think a really interesting topic. Tom, we're almost at time here. I'd love a top prediction or 2 on something you think happens. Let's just call it by the end of 2024.
End of 2024. Okay. I think there may be a bit of a sort of reaction against sort of greenwashing. I think we've sort of had 2 chapters. We've had sort of companies talking about ESG and their responsibilities. I think there's an enormous media focus now on climate change and the significant sort of impacts that will be felt by all. But I think we're in the sort of first innings where companies are doing things as gestures. Obviously things like carbon credits have kind of met their comeuppance. But I think there'll be a realization that using a sort of organic cotton bag that you then throw away after using it 10 times is actually worse than plastic bags. I think there will be a realization that EVs, when you look at the total supply chain, are sort of more problematic than we first thought. So I don't think there'll be a sort of huge rebellion against it. I just think we'll have slightly more enlightened and nuanced conversations about environmental movements. And the topic will become a little bit more meaty rather than sort of reactionary and naive.
So a lot more pragmatic discussions about this.
I think so. I mean, I think people need help. Like people, there's no point in sort of telling people that they can't eat beef, because being told what to do isn't a good thing. I think there'll be much more movement towards, look, here are 10 changes that you can make to your life that actually make a big difference. It's almost the opposite to the sort of paper straw thing. You know, people sort of had paper straws, they noticed them, they found them annoying, and they realized that it wasn't really changing anything about the world whatsoever. We will find the opposite to paper straws.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I think that's a great end to the show. Listeners, feel free to suggest anything you think is going to happen.
Yes.
By the end of next year, and we can have a little dialogue with Tom because he has promised to come back on the show next year. Thank you, Tom. So
tell me where I'm wrong. I love being wrong because it means I learn, and sometimes I offer opinions which are less well formed than they may seem. So we all grow from debate when people are wrong.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you, Tom. Thanks for being on the show. And thanks to everyone for listening to CMO Confidential. Look for more of our shows on Evergreen, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, which include an operations-trained CEO dishes on what he really thinks about marketing. A B-School professor discusses brands taking a socio-political stand. Hint, it's often not a very good idea. A primer on the marketing CFO. And finally, why is B2B marketing so bad and what to do about it? Hey, all you marketers, stay safe out there. This is Mike Linton signing off for CMO Confidential.
Today's episode of CMO Confidential is brought to you by CMOcoaches.com. Are you a current or aspiring chief marketing officer looking to take your career to the next level? You should work with a CMO coach. CMO coaches are former CMOs who are nationally certified coaches. So whether you want to improve your leadership skills, develop your team, or drive better business results, we have the experience and expertise to help you succeed. To learn more, visit us at CMOcoaches.com.
Are you tired of the same old productivity hacks? Have you read the top 20 books on effectiveness, and yet your workdays and email inbox still causing anxiety, burnout, and even depression? Ready to learn the latest in brain-based modalities, techniques, and technologies to optimize your success and well-being? Welcome to the Focus to Evolve podcast, where we'll illuminate your path to spacious productivity and balanced thriving. Each week, we dive into deeply insightful and immediately impactful methods to help you become highly effective while promoting health, profitability, and well-being. Say goodbye to the trance of busyness and hello to your highest potential. It's time to discover a new way of accelerating your mission, growth, and purpose. Join us on the Focus to Evolve podcast and get ready to live your most joyful, productive, and fulfilling life.
Great careers are forged out of great relationships. Your success, whatever your field, relies and thrives on the support and insights of others. I'm Andy Lapata, an author and speaker on the power of professional relationships. In the Connected Leadership podcast, I have the privilege of interviewing people from around the world to understand the relationships that have made a difference on their journey and how their insights can help you. From Nobel Prize winners to Olympians, from NASA astronauts to peace campaigners, my guests have shared some captivating moments from their lives and careers. Combined with experts from leading universities, cutting-edge authors and giants of business, the Connected Leadership podcast aims to inspire, educate and entertain.